people are panicking, and they want to get as much meat as possible. I have people calling and asking for whole cows or 50 pounds of chicken, and that's not what we do.
And the reason for all that panic buying, a meat shortage leaving some grocery store shelves empty, and many Wendy's locations either removing burgers from their menus or warning that they do not contain beef. Senator Kevin Cramer represents a critical state in the nation's meat supply, North Dakota, and he joins us now. Senator, good morning. Thanks so much for being here.
Good morning, Senator. It's my pleasure. Thank you.
So many of our viewers have been warned of this. They've been bracing for this because we've heard from Tyson and others that they've had to shutter facilities because of workers getting sick. But now you have some of the big grocery store chains, Costco, limiting purchases of meat for their customers to 3 items. Kroger putting warnings up about limited supply. Are we facing a meat shortage as a country now?
Well, Senator, I think we are, but I think in these extraordinary times you could sort of understand why that might be the case, and certainly the illness of people in these plants is a significant part of the problem. But like so many things during the COVID-19 pandemic, it also exposes a much larger problem, a real supply chain vulnerability once again. The fact is that 80% of the meat in the United States is processed by 4 companies. 2 of those companies are foreign owned. One is the largest pork processing facility in the country, Smithfield, is Chinese owned. The largest beef processing facility in the United States, JBS, is Brazilian owned. So you see not only a concentration of the processing into very large companies, but you also see the foreign ownership and the vulnerabilities that brings. And then when you look at the price, Sandra, in January, the price of beef to the rancher was $125, roughly 100 weight. The price of a steak was $214. Then the price went down in March to $88 a hundredweight to the rancher, but the price of a steak went up to $5.14. So you're seeing, in my view, I think some games being played with both the pandemic and the vulnerability of our supply chain in this huge concentration of meat packing.
So you want the Department of Justice to investigate. What you suggest is price fixing that you just described. So you're calling for that. Do you see that happening? And ultimately, what do you think that they'll find, Senator?
Yeah, so it's a great question, because what we want to see is, are there antitrust violations here? There's something that doesn't make sense when the price of the critter goes down, but the price of the end product goes up, and the same entities sort of control the entire range of the supply chain, up and down, upstream and downstream. But we can't know for sure if there is an investigation going on, because while we wrote a letter that Senator Rounds from South Dakota and I wrote asking the Justice Department to look into this, they no longer can then either confirm nor deny as a result of the fact that if there was, it would be an active investigation. However, I can tell you that I did receive word this week or last week from a sales barn in North Dakota that they did receive an inquiry from the Department of Justice. So I am confident that they're at least looking into it.
Senator, it's not as simple as these facilities shutting down in the case of Tyson and others, that they just simply can't process that meat into the meat that we buy on our grocery store shelves?
Well, we certainly don't want to see these facilities shut down. We'd like to see them ramping back up, and we're encouraged by the fact that that is happening. That will certainly help us during this short term. But what I'm saying is there's a larger systemic problem when the demand and the supply aren't in sync. So when you see the price going down to the farmer or the rancher, but the price going up to the consumer, that shows something much more severe than simply a shortage of meat processing.
Well, all of this is being exposed because of the ongoing pandemic. The administration fighting hard to get us out of this. We're trying to reopen the country, get our economy going again. And meanwhile, there's a big discussion happening about holding China accountable. Here's what the president said on that at the Fox News town hall on Sunday.
We're going to be given a very strong report as to exactly what we think happened. And I think it'll be very conclusive. My opinion is they made a mistake. They tried to cover it. They tried to put it out. It's like a fire. It's really like trying to put out a fire. They couldn't put out the fire.
So there seems to be some conflicting messages coming from the administration, the task force, the president, and Mike Pompeo as Secretary of State, saying that they have evidence or they've seen evidence that points to this virus escaping that lab in Wuhan. But meanwhile, Dr. Fauci, in a brand new interview with Nat Geo, saying that he does not believe it spread from that lab and that this was spread species to species outside of the lab. What are your thoughts on everything that we're learning on that this morning, Senator?
Well, there are a couple of sources, of course. I think the Five Eyes dossier that was leaked to the media that a reporter in Australia wrote about is very revealing. And clearly, both Dr. Fauci and then the others in the administration can be right. I mean, he can have an opinion as to how he thinks it was spread, and there can be evidence, at least some evidence, that needs maybe further investigation that it came from a lab. So both can be true, and I don't doubt. But one thing that seems to be certain is that there has been not just a lack of transparency, but a very aggressive attempt at squelching important information that could have prevented the spread of this disease had China just been much more open and forthcoming with information. Now they're caught in it, and it's just going to bring on not just the wrath of the American people, but the entire country, the entire free world, the entire free world is looking now at them with a different lens and more scrutiny than it might have otherwise happened. But rightfully so, because just as the shortage of beef has shown a vulnerability in our supply chain, so now we're learning a lot more about how communism works and how a state-owned media actually operates. And I'm a little bit concerned, frankly, that our free media isn't quite as concerned about it as Fox News is.
Senator, with the 20 seconds or so that we have left here, though, I'll ask you the question that we've asked others this morning, including Alex Azar, the HHS secretary. If there is evidence that points to this escaping that lab in Wuhan that we have, the World Health Organization saying that we don't have that, please show it to us. Shouldn't we share that evidence with the world? Final thoughts.
I think we ought to. I think we have an obligation to do that, but we ought to be certain of the information first, and that, of course, first requires getting it.
Got it. Senator Cramer, really appreciate your time this morning. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you, Sandra.